important in terms of this Gladio B narrative, which you've been laying out for a number of years now. And this one comes via the New York Times, January 14th, 2015. Turks are held in plot to help Uyghurs leave China. And this is talking about 10 Turkish citizens and 2 Chinese citizens that have been arrested and accused of providing altered Turkish passports to terrorist suspects from the western region of Xinjiang, a state-run newspaper reported on Wednesday. Xinjiang, that sounds familiar.
People who have been following my interviews, if they recall, even in 2004, 2005, I always talked about the importance of Xinjiang and what Turkey and US like to refer to as East Turkestan, the Xinjiang region, in this operation to organize the descent of Uyghurs against the mainland China and the Chinese government. I used to talk about this a lot, and people would say, why? I mean, she's talking about Xinjiang, Turkestan. Let's talk about Saudi Arabia. Why can't we talk about Pakistan? They are relevant. Who cares what's happening in a place called Xinjiang? We don't even know how it's spelled. A lot of these people are taken out by Gladio operatives. In this case, most of the times by the Turks. They are trained and they are armed and then they are sent back. And there are various areas, porous borders. And even if you look at Afghanistan, especially now that we have Afghanistan as a kind of a base, you can see how easy it is to smuggle these people out, militaristically train them and arm them, tell them what to do in terms of the next stage of operations, then send them back from the other side, going through Central Asian Caucasus to Afghanistan, where lo and behold, some terror events takes place and people have no idea. How did they get the guns? How were they trained militaristically? Because Xinjiang is under China's control. Well, they are trained outside, similar to with the Syrian opposition. So the Chinese government's version of the story is much closer than when the New York Times takes the version of the Turkish side. It's going to be extremely important, this region. Xinjiang is going to be the next Taiwan. Look at the map. You see the importance of Xinjiang. That is the entry artery of energy, whether it's coming from Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan into China, whether it's natural gas or if it's oil, it has to pass. As long as the Gladio, United States, the CIA, the NATO, they control that region with the terrorism. Can you imagine any pipeline safely going through Xinjiang area and get into the heart of the mainland China? It's not going to happen. That's why it's very important. And then it's going to come to the point where we're going to have someone similar to Richard Gere start giving speeches and talk about, like they do it with the monks there in Tibet, how these people are being abused and oppressed and they need to have their own land.
There's an ethnic group in China being systematically surveilled and imprisoned in an attempt to essentially wipe their culture off the map. That is heartbreaking and completely indefensible.
And as we talked about before, the United States have already brought one of these figures from Xinjiang area into the United States. He lives in McLean, into the State Department, and they had a meeting where they declared him the president of East Turkestan in absentia. So as far as the Gladio US is concerned, they even have a president for Xinjiang. How could you have a president for a country, nation that doesn't exist? There's no sovereignty, it's part of mainland China. Meaning that is the objective. We want another Taiwan.
You raise a number of important points there. This might not be the new Taiwan, it might be the new Tibet, the kind of trendy Hollywood cause célèbre that everyone has to get behind when George Clooney or whoever, CFR member, comes out and speaks out about it. I think the other important point that you raise there is there are genuine issues about the way the Han Chinese treat the Uyghur population and the types of anti-terror operations that the Chinese conduct in these regions. But it's always a question of what then is the solution and how does it play out and for whose interest. The same way that Ukraine became a flashpoint and a focal point for the new Cold War with Russia, I think something like Xinjiang could become a flashpoint for what's going to happen with China.
It's definitely going to come. The question is not whether it's going to come. The question is when. And you see that gradually they are paving the way. So it's going to happen, whether it's 5 years down the road or 2 years down the road. And these things heating up. And of course, Chinese are playing it very, very smart. Very smart. When I keep looking at how they respond things, how they handle it, they are so logical. Have we ever heard China really loudly saying the United States is doing this? They know they have a very, very good counterintelligence, but it will be hard for the Western powers to try to throw the bait and say, okay, bite it. So even though they are doing the counterterror, they are doing it in a very self-controlled, restrained manners because they know what the game is about. It's going to be extremely important, this region. Xinjiang is going to be the next Taiwan. Look at the map. You see the importance of Xinjiang. That is the entry artery of energy, whether it's coming from Kazakhstan or Turkmenistan into China, whether it's natural gas or if it's oil, it has to pass.